Hey everybody, Sam here, talking about tap products as usual. This time we're talking about the cable guards. And if you've seen our website, checked into the social media posts, maybe you've been looking at tapped out bows, you've certainly seen that we offer a titanium cable guard. And I've gotten a lot of inquiries about these products. Can I adapt them to my bow? Why aren't they available for other brands? So I started looking at it. The more I've done these, as the demand has grown, the more I've been able to recognize potential for offering it for other brands. So that's what we're now doing. It's no longer the case that they're only available for Athens. They're available essentially for any bow that has a 3/8 inch outer diameter rod that can be removed from the bow for the cable guard. That's critical. It has to be removable and it needs to be 3/8 inch outer diameter. It's possible that we'll include some other diameters down the line if we find that there are a fair amount of bows that have a different diameter removable rod. But at this point, 3/8 has been far and away the most common size that's used by companies that have a removable cable guard like this. It is important that you note that if you have a flex guard, a roller flexed style guard like you'll see on Bowtech, you'll see on, I think I've seen it on possibly Elite, I'm not sure. I know I've seen it on Expeditions, the newest ones. We can't adapt to the proprietary design that they have built into their riser. There's fittings, there's fasteners that prevent us from being able to adapt this design to that. But what I'm going to show you here is what this product offers you, what you need to do to measure to determine which size to order for your bow. So let's go over the parts. Now obviously this is not entirely titanium. We call it the titanium cable guard because it does use a titanium tube, and that does provide some significant benefits. I have the bow, of course, the side of the bow is facing you here, so I'm going to show the coupler, same coupler that we use for our string stop. It makes for a really easy to adjust unit. It adapted itself really nicely to this. So the coupler is facing you with the tap logo being up and the titanium tube being in the upper hole portion, and that is the way it needs to be mounted. Now of course you would probably want the logo to face you. So why this works and what it does, one of the features is that you have straight line travel of your roller guard, or your hyper glide in this case is the guard that goes in place here, the cable guard roller that goes in place. So that gives you a very nice consistent straight line travel. It definitely appears, based on chronograph tests and the extensive shooting that I've done with these, it certainly seems to be the case that it is experiencing a lower coefficient of friction, or essentially an easier, less resistant path up and down. So that is increasing speed slightly. That is also providing more consistent speeds. And now here's where it gets really interesting, and I'll document this further with some high-speed video that I do soon. But the titanium tube, it is very thin-walled. Titanium has a really impressive ability to be able to deform or flex or bend, but not permanently deform. Of course, it can go, there's a point obviously you go to if you bend it far enough that it will remain bent, but it has an ability to go very far for a metal. And what is happening during the process of shooting is it is flexing to some degree. That is great, and that's something that you can't say you would be able to achieve with a solid carbon fiber rod. It's too rigid, it's too resistant. You couldn't achieve that with an aluminum rod for the most part. You might get some flex, but the ability that this tube has to accept that energy, that side load that's being applied to it, flex through the shot and snap back into place very, very rapidly is pretty impressive. And it will provide a better, more tunable bow too. Time and time again, people are exclaiming that they are seeing easier tuning, and it's on the tapped out bows. And I do think that the string stop and the cable guard contribute a good bit to that. I really do. So I mentioned side load. That is one of the benefits here too, is that you can rotate this block to adjust how much side load pressure you have on these cables. You also can adjust for fletching clearance. And how much you might think you need, it will be dependent, of course, on where you ultimately set this. Once you've got it set, you don't really have to be concerned about is it inducing too much cam lean or anything like that. We're not really seeing it induce any cam lean. They wouldn't already be there. And it is tunable to where it's set. So set it, tune it, leave it in place if it gives you all the features you want, the clearance you want, etc. So you have the titanium tube, aluminum coupler, and of course you have a carbon fiber rod that goes into the riser. Now to get back to, and as I mentioned, Saunders Hyperglide slide, which is already known for being a very effective little product, and we include that with ours. So getting back to how you determine that it works for your bow or not, this is the important part. Two measurements that I need from you. One is going to be the depth that this rod goes into the riser. So your stock rod should be marked and then extracted and then measured. That's what I would recommend you do. Take a pencil, mark along the edge of the riser where it enters, right at that edge. Pull that out, measure that, and then select from the website depth into the riser. So you'll have some spans. It's in short increments. It'll be say 2 inches to 2.5 inches or 2.25 rather, and then 2.25 to 2.5. So it goes in 1/4 inch increments. Select that. On this bow, I think it's roughly, I mean, I can just get you a pretty good rough estimate just by marking it right here with my finger and then measuring that. But I think we were looking at around 1 inch and, let's see. Yeah, about 1 3/4 inches. About 1 3/4 inches roughly there. So that's what you want to do for that. Measure that, get the closest increment that we have available, and that will allow us to cut the carbon fiber to suit your bow best. And then the other measurement that we need, and this is very important too, we do have some flexibility in the range here. I'll show you. You do have some flexibility on where the Saunders Hyperglide comes to rest on this tube. It can go back to some degree and still have enough room when you're at full draw, and it can go forward to some degree and still have enough room not to hit the coupler when the arrow comes forward. But we're generally trying to get it in the middle of that tube. Now you can see on this bow that you're not going to hit exactly at the middle where these cables cross, but it's close. On this bow, you even could go forward a little bit like this, have it extended out from the riser a little bit there, maybe it's about 1/8 of an inch, and still be okay with the amount of distance you have. But this is coming in at about almost the shortest from edge of riser to cable crossing. This bow right here is about almost the shortest we could put this on, this particular model here. So I'll show you what we're looking at exactly with that. Now, as you can see, this carbon rod is considerably longer than it would need to be for this bow and for this setup. So if you were to order this from us for this bow, you would not get that long of a carbon rod. It would be cut to suit this bow. All right, so we'll pull that out now and measure. So from edge of riser, again, we're looking at where the cable guard enters the riser. I don't want you to measure from down here in the grip, you know, the furthest point in your grip to your cables. I don't want that. I want to know from up here to the cable crossing, what's that distance. So what you can do is measure from the, maybe from the bottom of where that hole is, and then eyeball down where the cables cross, because the cables are going to cross below that hole, and they will in all bows. But you can get a really accurate estimate just by eyeballing and looking at where they cross. On this bow, it's 2 1/8 inches. So you would select the 2 to 2.25. That would be the option you would select there. And that will give you a very precisely fitting titanium cable guard. You're going to have not a lot of excess carbon. You're going to have maybe a little bit to play with. So let's say, for example, it might end up being set up so that you have the smallest amount protruding, or perhaps even the tiniest hair inside of the edge of the coupler. But you're going to have plenty to bite down into, and you're going to have a very secure setup. 2 set screws on the back, that's how it's adjusted. So go take a look. This video will go up to our website. It'll be used to help guide people through the process of setting these up and understanding what they're getting in the product. I thank you for your time as always, and if you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out. Again, 3/8 inch outer diameter, must be round, must be removable, and you need to get those two measurements. Thanks a lot. Stay tapped out.